Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Today we're asking the question, does God exist?
Huge question.
Yes, it's an important question. It's part of our series, Top Objections to Following Jesus. What do you think about this question, Kevin?
I think it's a very important question, like you said, because I would not recommend following someone who's not real. Yeah. But if God is real, we should pay attention to Him. So we're going to go through some arguments for the existence of God. Let's start with some philosophical arguments, then some scientific, and finally metaphysical. Let's start with philosophy. I think the two worth mentioning at the beginning is the contingency argument and the cosmological argument. And they're very linked, close together, but the cosmological argument is a little easier to understand and explain. It's related to the law of cause and effect. How do you explain the law of cause and effect, Johan?
Yeah, it's basically this idea that for every effect, there has to be a cause.
Yeah.
So if I see a ball rolling down the street, I'm not going to be, surprised, where did this ball come from? I'm going to naturally think, there's probably a kid across the street that, kicked the ball over the fence.
Yeah, someone had to kick it or throw it or roll it down the street. There had to be someone putting that forth for it to roll. Right, that makes so much sense. Yeah. So very simple, universal law of nature. And so if we apply that to everything, every star that has to be formed, there has to be a cause behind it. Every person that is born, there's a cause behind that. Every tree that is grown had to be planted by someone. And so if you look at all the events of the universe, everything that has ever occurred, and you go back to the first event, what was that?
Yeah, so scientists agree that the universe actually had a beginning, and that beginning was at the Big Bang.
Big Bang.
So if you look at the Big Bang as the first event, there has to be a cause behind the Big Bang.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing about this cause is this cause had to be outside of time and space, right? Because we know today that space and time is interconnected. The way if space bends, we get a bendage in time as well. So the cause behind the Big Bang had to be outside of time, had to be timeless.
Wow, that's so crazy to think about. So that first cause, it makes sense for it to be God because, first of all, it's outside of space and time, and He has to be very powerful because look at how big the Big Bang was and the universe that came from it. And you can even go further just thinking there, well, also had to be intelligent because look at all the design and all the intelligence. Every intelligent being came from that Big Bang and that first cause.
And immaterial.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true because if it was a material being, then it had to exist inside of space.
Yeah.
But because material has a fit in space. But
so there goes the God of the gaps idea of some old guy sitting, and he's thrown on a cloud.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's not it. For sure. So that ties into the contingency argument. Now, contingency meaning everything you look around, everything that exists, that you see is contingent. It exists because it's dependent on something else to exist. For example, the apple doesn't exist by itself, but it came from the tree, and the tree came from a seed, and the seed came from the apple. To exist, there had to be an apple and a seed. And it's the same with humans, with everything. I don't exist because I have to exist, but I exist based on something else, and that is based on my parents, and also based on food and water, or else I would cease to exist.
Yeah.
Right. So putting all that together, you think of if everything in the universe is contingent, depending on something else, then nothing would exist.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
It's like the chicken and the egg.
Exactly, the chicken and the egg. You think, well, which one was first, the egg or the chicken? Because the egg depends on the chicken depends on the egg to exist. So it's an infinite loop. But if no one started the loop, then the loop wouldn't exist.
Wow.
There has to be someone outside, and that thing, whatever it is, has to exist necessarily. So it's not dependent on anything else to exist. It just exists because it has to.
Yeah.
And that answers the question, why is there something rather than nothing?
Yeah.
And the reason is something has always existed.
Yeah.
And so that necessary being, we call it God.
Wow. Yeah, that makes so much sense.
Huge.
Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
And moving on from there, I think the ontological argument is really cool.
No. I think we've had enough
Okay,
philosophical arguments.
Okay.
I'm sure there's plenty. But
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
but look up Anselm's ontological argument and write a comment below if you want us to do a longer version of this video. Maybe we'll talk about them some other time. Let's go to scientific arguments then.
Yeah.
Beginning with the origin of life. So just think, life comes from life, and the animate doesn't come from the inanimate, meaning we've never seen life spring up from non-life. You will never see a frog jump out of a rock and just like be created out of a rock, because the rock is not a living thing. Yeah. And so if we apply that to everything, you go back, where did the first living being come from?
Yes.
And that's a very important question.
Yeah.
And the scientific explanation is that they try to come up with to disprove God is, what is it called again?
The primordial soup model.
Exactly.
Yeah, so this is basically this idea that life came out of non-life.
Yeah.
So the idea with the primordial soup model is that billions of years ago there was this pond, and there was some gas, and there was a lightning strike, and a reaction happened.
Some chemical reaction.
Somehow. And eventually something slithered there out of out of the water. But the interesting thing is that in laboratory environments for hundreds of years now, we have not been able to create life at all. In fact, we are getting further behind. We are realizing today that life is much more complicated than what they thought in the 1920s when they came up with this primordial soup model. They didn't know about the information in DNA. They didn't know about RNA. They didn't know about the building blocks of protein.
Yeah, amino
acid. It's just such a complicated thing, a living cell.
Yeah.
And if we can't create it in a lab in perfect conditions, it's a very far stretch to try and convince me that it happened by accident.
Wow.
Just because of a lightning strike.
There is zero evidence of life ever coming from non-life.
No evidence at all. Yeah.
Not even one cell. No one can do that.
No one can do that.
Yeah. If they do, then please let me know. But so far, it makes so much sense. Life comes from life, and so the first thing that caused the whole universe and life itself is a living being.
Yeah,
that's why we call him God.
Yeah.
Right. That's so true. And if you move on from there, we can also apply that. Again, you take that one step further. The rational comes from rational. Like you won't see the rational coming from an irrational. For example, I'm a rational being. I didn't come from an irrational thing. Yeah. But so if you go back in time, the first being is also a rational being. And so you can apply that to God as well. Yeah. Intelligent. You see all the intelligence that came from him, and all around, even intelligent design and so forth. That brings us to the next one, teleological argument.
Yes.
That includes intelligent design and fine-tuning, all those things, which is huge, so important. I think it includes purpose and order and the sustainability of life. Like, thinking of purpose, even I've been thinking about bees, like how they exist. They know, like, I was born for this. They go around flowers every day, so thousands and thousands of flowers, gathering the nectar to go back to the honeycomb and make honey. They know that's their purpose.
Yeah, so effective in what they do.
So effective. And even a tree, you look at it, the whole point of it growing is that it would bear fruit. Yeah. And there's that purpose in so many things that you can see. And then beyond just purpose, there's order and the laws of the universe that cannot change. Even in mathematics, there's order to it. You cannot break math. The whole world works according to that. And so that came from what? An intelligent being that gave order. Order does not come from chaos by accident, right? And then also the sustainability of life. and fine-tuning is key for that. Like, it had to be so perfectly tuned for life to exist. All of those things together, they point to a designer. So that intelligent design. But I want you to tell me, Johan, a little bit about DNA. That's just one of those things that clearly point to intelligent design.
Yeah, DNA is so fascinating. You know, the first thing about DNA is that if you take all the DNA strands in your body and put them together, they would stretch to the sun and back 600 times. But the most important thing, and why DNA is so important, was such an important discovery, is that we discovered that it contains all the information necessary for life.
Wow.
And it's so huge that even people like Bill Gates has said that the information in DNA is like a very, very complicated computer program, like even like an operating system. And the fascinating thing about that is that it's similar to a computer program in the sense of the amount of information it has, but also that it's not random. You can't just throw random zeros and ones into a computer and think you're going to get an operating system out of it.
Yeah, and even if you take an existing operating system, you try to scramble, change a few things, what's going to happen?
It's just going to break the system, right? So, so this really is a problem for the argument of just random mutation. Because the information is so specific. In fact, it's so specific that if you look at the building blocks that build proteins, the amino acids, to get one of those instructions right, it's like having a bike lock, you know, with different dials, each has 10 combinations. But imagine a bike lock, instead of having 5 dials, having 195 dials that you have to dial exactly right to get the information correct to form one protein.
Wow.
So they've calculated that is so much information. It'll take so long to decode that bike lock. If you started 6 billion years ago and change and tried a different combination every second, you would have only come a quarter of the way of decoding that code for. I'm talking about one protein.
Because if you get one number wrong out of all of them, nothing works.
Nothing works.
And
no protein.
Same with DNA.
Yeah, no protein forms.
Exactly.
And proteins. Then there's no cell. Then there's no life. That is how complicated life is.
That's so crazy to think about, and that brings me to fine tuning as well. Like, the stats are insane. The complicated, complex design behind it, because chance just can't do it. Can't make it. It's a logical impossibility. Think about the gravitational constant, for example. If it was a fraction more or less, stars wouldn't form properly, like the law of gravity. And if stars don't form properly, then life cannot exist. And again, the cosmological constant, this is what regulates the expansion of the universe. The universe is always expanding. But if it was expanding a fraction faster or slower, the universe would either collapse back on itself and nothing would exist, or it would expand so fast that galaxies would not be able to form. And so, again, no life. And another one, the strong nuclear force. If it was 2% stronger or different in any way, no stable elements would exist. So think about carbon, the building blocks of life. No life, again. Another one, electromagnetic force. If it's slightly off, then atoms can't hold together. Bro, it goes on and on and on. And an analogy about fine-tuning, I think of it as, imagine we're playing poker, right? And you get a royal flush, meaning 5 cards in a row from the same suit, so there's only one of them each, and they're the top, the royal ones, the royal cards. And if you got that and we're playing poker, Johan, I would say, dang, you're lucky, man.
Very lucky.
So lucky, man. This is crazy. But if you got it again and again and a dozen times over the royal flush again and again, there is no way anyone would be thinking this was an accident or he's just lucky. There is something up with this. This game is rigged. You talk to the dealer, something is up between you two. This was clearly points to a plan behind it, a design behind it.
Yes.
This wasn't by chance that this happened.
Yes.
Someone wanted life to happen, and it wasn't by accident.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on from there, let's go to the metaphysical. I think first, objective morality is so important because everyone agrees, everyone lives by morals pretty much. They know it's a thing. But the difference is it just an imagination of our brains and a social construct, or is it real? Is morality true?
Yeah, so the idea, like you said, of objective morality is that there are certain things that everybody agrees on. This is wrong. Right. So, for example, murder and rape.
Wow.
I don't know of anybody who would say that is right. So, if objective morality does exist, there has to be a lawgiver. There's an objective law, there has to be a lawgiver. And that's the argument behind it. But if you don't want to accept that there's a lawgiver, basically what you're saying is that, objective morality doesn't exist, so it's just my preference.
Wow.
So right and wrong completely falls, out of the window.
There has to be a transcendent source of that morality, a basis of what is good, what is evil.
Yeah.
I like what Thomas Aquinas said about this. He calls it the natural law, because when atheists, they try and talk about subjective morality, well, it depends. You look different cultures, different times throughout history. Well, morality was very different back then, or in this little tribe. But there are some things, like Thomas Aquinas says, he calls it the natural law. This is how he describes it. He says, they are the primary moral principles that everyone in every culture for all time can't not know. And even the Bible talks about this in Romans 2:15, that the law is written in our hearts.
Yes.
And even the conscience that we have bears witness to what is good and what is evil. Murder, rape, stealing, lying, so forth and so forth. So really, that goes through any culture, any people group. We can understand this is objectively wrong, this is objectively good. And if you don't believe that, then why is it wrong to hurt others if it makes me feel good?
Yeah.
From an atheist perspective, there is no answer. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
None of it is right or wrong, like Darwin said. Right?
Yeah. Wow, such a good argument. I think one of the other arguments we should look at is the free will argument.
Yeah. Free will is huge also. I think all of us live as if we make choices. I made the choice, but what is I? Is it my brain and the chemical reactions inside? Is it just the matter and energy, me? Or is there something more than that? Because if it is just chemical reactions, then truly there is no free will, and we're all dictated by our biological drives and our circumstances and our upbringing about what we do. Doesn't matter if it's good or evil, that choice, we don't have a choice because it's just us. It's just our flesh and bone.
And also then there's no accountability, right?
Right.
If I didn't really have a choice, like how can you hold me accountable for my actions?
Right. Yeah. And so if you think through it, we are not just a random bunch of meat and energy bunched together, chemical reactions. If you believe that we have any capacity at all to make independent choices that supersede just those biological drives and our circumstances, our environment around us, then you necessarily have to believe there is a mind, a will, a soul behind those choices. You really exist. If not, you're nothing. You're just meat. The person Johan doesn't really exist, and you don't make choices. It's just chemical reactions. So that is a huge.
Wow.
We all live like there is a person, and the evidence is, even though you cannot scientifically put your soul in a bottle, there is something more, and that soul, that mind that we have, came from a soul and a mind that is of God. It's a gift of God.
Wow, man. Yeah, we really looked at some good arguments for the existence of God. But I want to throw a couple of objections in, and the first one is that if there is a God, why doesn't he just show himself?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think some people call it the problem of divine hiddenness. And first of all, I just want to say Jesus, he did show himself 2,000 years ago. And if you think about God, he's invisible, right? He's outside space and time. And even though we have all these clues that we talked about, these arguments for the existence of God, God didn't leave it to just that, but actually he came into our world, took on human nature. The Bible describes Jesus as the image of the invisible God.
Wow.
So through him, we can actually know God for real. And we're going to talk about all the historical evidence behind that and the resurrection and all of that in the next videos. But I just want to say also, on a personal level, you can know the Holy Spirit today. Through the Holy Spirit, we can know God. And me and many other Christians around the world can testify to this, that you can really have an experience with God. And it's, for me, it's undeniable that he is real, because I've experienced him and I know him, and so many people can testify to this. Now, there are some atheists that say, well, I've prayed and God didn't show himself to me, so I can't force myself to believe in God, right? I've tried, but I failed in finding him. And what the Bible answers that, God says in Jeremiah 29:13, he promises, and you will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. And so searching him with all your heart is the key. And also Jesus similarly says in Matthew 7:7, keep seeking and you will find. And I think that's the key. Don't give up.
Yeah.
And God will show himself to you.
Wow, man. What you're saying is really awesome, but I want to throw another objection in there. People will ask this question: if God is real, why is there so much suffering in the world?
Yeah, that's the big one. I think maybe the biggest one that keeps people from believing in God. And it's such a big question. We need to tackle it in the next video. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're excited to see you on the next video. If there is a God, why is there suffering?